So, welcome everybody to what will be a very interesting and thought-provoking discussion with a very special guest. His Holiness Swayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj, who has traveled all the way from the UK to join us. So a little introduction about Maharaj. So Maharaj was born and raised in London and did his undergraduate degree at University College London, or UCL. After completing his undergraduate degree, Maharaj became a full-time monk, serving as a brahmachari at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in Watford. He also served as a head brahmachari at the manor, and in 2022, Maharaj took the vows to enter the renounced order of life. Maharaj is an accomplished author, authoring at least 10 books, and has used his lifetime of scriptural studies to present ancient wisdom in a refreshing and practical way for modern times. Maharaj is like an ocean of timeless wisdom, and I'm certain that we will catch some drops from Maharaj's wisdom tonight. He is also a community builder and he's pioneered projects for students all over the world, such as School of Bhakti and Think Gita. And so tonight's program will all be about questioning Maharaj. Questioning is a very beautiful action, as it is from questioning one can grow and understand. Question gives rise to the opportunity for our doubts to be cut by the penetrating clarity of knowledge. In fact, the Vedanta Sutras begin when one starts questioning the reality about who they are, why they are here, and what is the purpose of life. This is known as Atato Brahma Jignasa. But questions have to be meaningful. Many times we don't even ask the right questions. For example, I did a very quick search on Google on what is the most searched question on Google. And the number one hit was what to watch tonight. In a world where Netflix and Prime Video dominate our lives, the one question is how to entertain yourself. So questions can be thoroughly transformative if they are the right questions, asked at the right time, asked to the right person, and in the right spirit. So the knowledge of the Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, the two spotless Vedic scriptures, the jewels of Vedic knowledge, they were a direct result of the satisfaction of these four criteria of questioning. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked the right question at the right time before the battle began, to the right person, to Lord Shri Krishna himself, and in the right spirit, in a submissive and a humble mood. So, there is no better time than the present to start our questioning, and we are certainly asking them to the right person and in a spirit of learning and assimilating the wisdom that Maharaj will impart today. We are going to start the program by letting Maharaj speak about his journey in spirituality, after which Maharaj and I will have a 3-round knockout, question and answer, surrounding the importance, need and purpose of all things regarding spirituality. At the end of every round, the floor will open to the audience for a couple of questions each time. So please keep your questions of a general flavor and not too specific, so that we don't get sidetracked. So without further ado, let's hear from Maharaj himself.
Hare Krishna. Can I get a very loud Hare Krishna? Hare Krishna. So we're very, very happy to be here with you. And yes, this is a very unique evening. We will be having questions and answers. Once I was doing an event and we said, tonight is all about questions and answers. And as soon as I said that, someone put their hand up. I said, wow, you have a question already? He said, yes. What time is prasadam? I said, don't worry, relax. Prasadam will be there, so please just be with us for the next hour or so and try to hear and try to see whether any question comes in your mind, in your heart. I'm looking out at the audience here today and I'm seeing that there's a good percentage of you who have grown up with knowledge of the Vedic culture, so maybe you have some questions. There are maybe the younger generation who know something also. There are perhaps those who are new to Krishna consciousness and you will have your questions. So please feel free. There's no judgment here and please be open and free to ask whatever you feel would be useful. Yes, I come to you. I'm sitting in front of you not as someone who knows everything. I'm also a student. I'm on the journey. My mother came from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and my father's from India, but I grew up in London. And as I was growing up in London, when I was about 15, I began having many questions in my life. I was wondering, why are we here? What happens after this life? What's the purpose of this world? Why do bad things happen to good people? These were all questions I was asking. And so when I was 15, I began reading the Bhagavad Gita. And I have to be honest with you, the first time I read the Bhagavad Gita, I had to close it after one page because I didn't understand anything. It was so complex, so difficult. But when I read it, I thought, there is some amazing knowledge here, but I have to be patient. So I continued reading, and then I began asking devotees at the temple. And my spiritual interest was growing. And then I went to university. I studied at UCL, University College London. And I did a degree in computer science and management. But after graduating at 21, I came home and I told my parents, please sit down. They could immediately understand I was going to drop a bomb. So I told them, I know I finished my degree. I know that I have an opportunity to now work in the city as an investment banker. But I think I need to do something different. So they said, what do you want to do? Management consultancy? I said, slightly more different than that. They said, what? You want to become an accountant? Or maybe you want to go into medicine? Not exactly. I think I need to go to India. India? Why do you want to go? No? Is someone getting married? No one's getting married. I just want to go to India to find out more about spiritual wisdom. So you can imagine for Indian parents it was difficult. But they allowed me, and I went when I was 21, and I lived in India for 6 months, and I was learning. And it was a very beautiful time for me. And then when I went back to London, I decided to stay in the temple. Let me try 1 year. And 1 year became 2 years, 2 years became 5, 5 became 10, 10 became 20, and ever since I'm still there. So nowadays I travel more, and I try to share with all of you, in whatever small way I can, the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, which, if you grasp it, it will help you on every single level in your life. If you want to have better relationships, read the Bhagavad Gita. If you want to have better health, read the Bhagavad Gita. If you want to understand how to make good decisions in your life, read Bhagavad Gita. If you want to understand how to be a better parent, read Bhagavad Gita. And if you want to find true happiness, read Bhagavad Gita. So don't wait till the end of life to start reading spiritual literature. Now is the time. And so this evening we are going to be discussing some of this. So are you enthusiastic for tonight?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So before we begin, we'll just be saying some prayers because it's important for us to pray to our teachers. This is called Mangalacharan. These are prayers in which we invoke auspiciousness. So please fold your hands and join me as we make some prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada Ki.
So Maharaj,
There's a question there already. We'll come to you, Prabhu.
so you mentioned that when you are growing up, you had that question about why do good things happen to people who are bad, or the vice versa. Why do bad things happen to people who are good? So I want to start with that question. So there was a French priest, and the French priest was very devout, and he had a son. Now the son died due to some disease, and he was questioning his entire faith when this event took place. And he concluded that there is a God, and I'm going to ask you 3 qualities and you tell me whether you agree with them. Is God all good?
Yes.
Okay. Is God all knowing?
Yes.
Okay. And is God all powerful?
Yes.
Okay. So now, this French priest, he concluded that only 2 out of these 3 can be correct at any given time. If the Lord is all-knowing, that he knew that his son was sick, and that he is all-powerful, then he cannot be all good, because he knew that he could save the child, but he did not save the child. Similarly, if God is all good and all powerful, he can't be all knowing, because if he knew that the child is going to die, he would have saved the child. If God is all good and is all knowing, then he cannot be all powerful, because otherwise he would have the power to stop the child from dying. So my question again is, this French priest then turned into an atheist because he concluded that God cannot be all good, all knowing and all powerful at the same time. So why do bad things happen to a good person like this French priest?
Thank you so much. Yes. Put your hands up in the audience if you are parents. Okay, now you can put your hand down. Put your hand up again if, as parents, you have ever done something which has caused your child to sometimes become angry or cry, or sometimes you had to tell them off. Everyone. So clearly that means you don't love your children. Because you would only do things to make them happy, right? Why would you cause them difficulty? Why would you cause them to cry? Why would you cause them to feel some dissatisfaction in their life? That means you don't love them. Is it? No. You love them. You love them, and because you love them, you know that a variety of experiences are required in their life in order to teach them the best way to live. And therefore, sometimes parents have to do the thankless task of also sometimes doing something with their children which they don't immediately like. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that there are two concepts which can help us to understand why there is suffering in this world. The first concept is known as karma, and the second concept is known as reincarnation. Why do we experience things in this world? Because these are reactions to actions that we've performed previously. But why should we have to get a reaction for the action? Because the reaction is educating us into a better way of living. So if you do something bad, then you get a bad reaction. And what that bad reaction does is it educates you that there is a better way to live. And vice versa, if you do something good, there is a good reaction which reinforces that way of acting. And in this way, Krishna explains that everything we're going through is not just random, it's not by chance. It's an experience that we're going through because we have to learn. Now, Krishna also explains that this life is not the only life, and therefore you may think, but a child dies immediately, but then how do they learn? What happens next? But what the ancient scriptures explain is that this life is a chapter of many. And because you're just trying to understand everything within one chapter, can you understand the whole story by reading one chapter? Every story has many chapters which have many different moods. So one chapter may be a difficult chapter, but there's another chapter, many chapters after that, in which happiness will come. So, if we want to understand why there's suffering in this world, then we have to broaden our understanding to understand that we are spiritual beings on a journey through multiple lifetimes, and the difficulties that we go through are meant to help us understand a better way to live.
Okay. But I have no recollection of previous life. I don't know what will happen after death. No one has seen what is going to happen after death. So how can you so confidently say that there is something known as reincarnation?
How do we prove reincarnation?
Yeah, that's my question.
Well, actually, you'll be surprised. There is actually a lot of scientific evidence for reincarnation. And I'll start to tell you some of them. First thing is that modern science agrees that every 7 years, every single body in your cell, every single cell in your body has changed. So that's already reincarnation, because this body is completely different to the body you had 7 years ago. The second proof of reincarnation is that there are many accounts of children who have actually remembered previous lives. There is a Nobel laureate, his name is Ian Stevenson, and he has actually documented 5,000 cases where children in their very early age begin to recollect previous lives. So for example, a child in Africa may recollect, I was this person, I lived in Brazil, this was the name of my father, this is the place I lived, and this is how I died. And then what he does is he goes back in time and he sees whether such a person has existed. And he has documented 5,000 cases of positive corroboration. How is that possible? Because yes, there is indication that this life is just a chapter. So reincarnation is not just a religious belief. It's actually backed up by also scientific evidence if we look a little bit closer.
Okay. I will have to check the facts for myself and cross-check that.
Sure. Ian Stevenson.
Ian Stevenson. Okay. All right. So, I hear that you mentioned the concept of karma, and somebody was explaining to me that karma means that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So basically Newton's third law. So does that mean that everything that we are experiencing right now is predestined? So does endeavor and having a go-getting attitude count for nothing? Because everything that is going to come to us is predestined. And is that why spiritualists like you seem to have given up on life by not chasing a better life for yourself?
Okay, thank you. The ancient scriptures explain that life is an interplay of fate and free will. That there are certain things in our life which are predestined. For example, you can't change your mother or father. That's predestined. You can't change, for example, certain things. Some people are destined for wealth, other people are not. Some people can sing beautifully and other people, it doesn't matter how many singing lessons they have. You don't want to hear them sing. So therefore, there is a sense in which some aspects in our life are predetermined. This is karma. However, there is always free will, because all that karma does is it creates the stage. For example, 15 minutes ago, both of us stepped onto this stage. Now, once we're on this stage, we can't change any of this decoration. This is all set. But what we want to speak in the microphone, that's up to us now. So similarly, in life, although there are predestined karma that are meant to come to you, you always have free will. For example, it might be my karma that someone comes and attacks me. But then my free will is, how do I respond to that? I could fight them back, or I could run away, or I could call the police. And according to whichever act I do, that will create my future karma. So your karma is being constantly recreated. And therefore everything is not predestined. We always have free will. And therefore, your second question, are spiritual people unambitious? What do you think? Are spiritual people unambitious? Is it that material people have lots of ambitions and spiritual people don't? Well, let's think about Srila Prabhupada. If you think spiritual people are unambitious, look at his life. At the age of 69, he left India with 40 rupees. At the time when most people are retiring, he decided to go to America on board a ship. He traveled for 2 months. He had 2 heart attacks on the ship. He came off the ship. He said, I didn't even know whether I should turn left or right. But he said, I continued on because I had a mission to make the world a better place. In the next 12 years, Srila Prabhupada circled the globe 14 times. He opened 108 temples. He translated 60 books. He initiated 5,000 disciples. And he made Hare Krishna known in every single city in the world without the use of social media. So, can we say spiritual people are unambitious? They have the biggest ambition. But their ambition is not selfish. Spiritual people don't have an ambition to make more and more enjoyment for themselves. Spiritual people are ambitious in a selfless way. Spiritual people are working hard. Spiritual people have a great vision of what they want to do in their life, but it's not a selfish vision. It's a selfless vision of how to make the world a more beautiful place through sharing spirituality with others.
Okay, so I applaud that viewpoint, but let me dial back a bit. So you said that if something bad happens to you, according to the laws of karma, there's no one to blame but yourself. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct. So then, should we always just live this life accepting all the injustice we get because there's no one to blame but yourself? even though you do not know what bad things you performed. Is that actually a very attractive proposition to live your life by? Thinking that, oh, I'll just accept whatever injustice I get. How can you live with that?
Yes, thank you. Things will happen to us in our life. Every single thing that happens to you in your life has a lesson. Every single thing that happens in your life is meant to teach you something about yourself, about the world, about God. But your point is that we don't remember the activity that we did and the reaction we're getting, so how do we learn the lesson? Therefore, you have spiritual books. Therefore, you have spiritual people. Therefore, you have spiritual practice. Because these are the means by which you can decode your karma and understand what you're meant to learn from everything that's going on. Tomorrow, if you walk out of this room and tomorrow something happens to you that's very, very challenging, if someone is spiritually connected, then they will be able to go to spiritual books, spiritual people, spiritual practices, and they will be able to get an incredible lesson from that incident that has happened to them, which helps them to progress and become better in their life. So you're not just supposed to accept what happens in your life. You're meant to learn from what happens in your life. But you can only learn from everything that's happening in your life if you have spiritual connection.
Okay, so spiritual connection, as you said, can be facilitated by spiritual books and spiritual people. But there's so many times that it's these very spiritual people who are trying to exploit and create more, I would say, sadness in your life. They'll exploit you. So how do we know that we are actually getting the real spiritual knowledge from spiritual gurus?
Has a doctor in this world ever made a mistake? Does that mean you're never going to go to a doctor ever again? Has a teacher at school ever made a mistake? Does that mean you're never going to go to a teacher at school again? Has a politician ever lied? Does that mean you're never going to vote for a politician again? We are living in a world in which people are making mistakes. And even sometimes spiritual people may make mistakes. Sometimes there may be gurus who profess to be something, but later on they are not shown to be what they actually are presenting to the world. But that doesn't mean that there are not genuine spiritual teachers. That doesn't mean that there aren't people who are significantly living this knowledge and practicing it on a very high level. But the first thing is that you have to understand what are the qualities of a teacher. And therefore we give people spiritual books. And in the spiritual books it will tell you, how does a teacher speak? What kind of qualities do they have in their character? How do they react to different circumstances? And then you will be able to understand who is a real teacher. And ultimately, we have to try. Put your hands up if you are married here. Did you do a criminal record check on the person you are marrying before you married them? Why not? You may have been marrying a serial killer. No, you had some faith. You had some trust. You were attracted to them and you thought, let us give it a try. Or maybe your parents arranged. But then you have faith in your parents. In this life, you cannot progress in anything unless you have faith. Agree? Without faith, what can you achieve? But this faith is not blind faith. So look for spiritualists who know the way, who go the way, and who can show the way. And those are the spiritualists that can also help you to know the way, go the way, and show the way.
Okay, so you touched on the point of blind faith, right? But I believe that seeing is believing, right? So, I believe in what I can perceive directly by my senses or indirectly by the use of instruments. So, for example, I can perceive everyone in this room because I can see them. And I can also perceive, say, my sister who lives in the UK, and I can just video call her right now and I can perceive her on my phone. Right? So, since I've not perceived God through my senses, I can't believe in Him. So, how is it you can?
Do you believe in love?
Yes.
Have you ever seen it?
Yes.
What does it look like? What does it look like?
In romance movies, you see like...
No, but what does it look like? You said you want to see it. What does it look like? Is it red? Is it round? Is it big? Is it small? What does it look like? You've seen the effects of love. You've not seen love. Have you ever seen your mind?
Through the monitors.
What does it look like? What does your mind look like? Is it round?
I've seen my brain.
Is it square? But what about your mind? So there are so many things we have not seen. And even if you say you see it through an instrument, that still requires faith. Have you ever been to Istanbul?
No.
Do you believe Istanbul exists?
Yeah.
Why?
Because this Turkish Airlines that goes from Mombasa to Istanbul. There's a direct flight from Mombasa to Istanbul.
We can also give you a direct flight from here to Goloka Vrindavan. Seeing and believing is not a very good strategy in life because your senses are limited. If you only lived in this world according to what you could see and therefore believe, even you don't live like that. Have you ever been on a flight?
Yes.
Did you check out the qualifications of the pilot before you got on the plane?
No.
So why did you believe then that he knows how to fly a plane?
Because there is a body that is responsible.
But you've not seen it yourself, so you're believing in someone else then.
Okay.
There you go. I'm usually a nice person. Sometimes I have to be strong. So therefore, no one follows that philosophy because faith is not opposed to knowledge. Faith is the foundation of knowledge. Okay, there are many hands here. Is that for prasadam or? Okay, can we give them a mic?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. If you can just wait 1 second for the mic, because we can, yeah, your voice is, yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you very
Krishna.
much.
Thank you.
Regarding the question of what we mentioned about the prasad time, so I recall my couple of incidences during my preaching sessions since last more than 20 years. Now, the prasad, we ISKCON people, we are always honoring the prasad. When I across a couple of people, there are three types of people. One person is having a greed to honor the prasad, to greed the thing, because it is available freely. Secondly, they are really honoring and respecting for the other also. And the third one, they are totally having energy with prasad. Now regarding this, when I quote some verses, let us say Bhagavad Gita 3:13, etc., because we are sinful and therefore we are in a material world and we have to become free by honoring the prasad, by eating the prasad gradually. So, mainly questions regarding those who are having an allergy of the prasad. When I invite them for prasad, they say, no, we don't take it. Why? Because temple has got the donation from many sinful people, and when we eat this one, we also be affected with those sins. Hare Krishna.
So the question is that some people don't want to take the prasadam here because they feel the money that was gained to cook the prasadam has come from questionable places. One thing they fail to understand is that Krishna is the most pure. And therefore anything that comes in contact with Krishna becomes purified. Om apavitra pavitro va sarvavastham gatopi va yasmaret pundari kaksham sabhaya bhyantara suchi. In this world, every endeavor is covered by some fault. Either the money is raised in unquestionable means, or we wear clothes in the kitchen that have been created through exploitation, or on the way to cooking, we step on some living entities. At every step, there is some imperfection in this world. But what we try to do is live in the most righteous way and dharmic way as possible. And then we understand that whatever is offered to God with sincerity immediately becomes purified. And therefore, no need to be allergic to prasadam. Prasadam is very wonderful, is pure, and even if sometimes there is some imperfection in the steps before, the moment it is offered to God, it becomes karma free. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yes, next question. Yes, this gentleman looks familiar.
I wanted to add on this question.
Yes.
Rather than experiencing, seeing, what about rationalizing? For example, the example you have given about a pilot.
Yes.
I don't need to see his degree, but I can rationalize it. Just don't let anybody enter the cockpit. I don't
Wonderful
need to
question.
see Istanbul,
Yeah.
but I can rationalize.
Deduction. Yeah.
What about if you use that?
Wow. Very good question. That's an amazing question. You are actually, well, what can I say? You are on the same page as Jiva Goswami. Because Jiva Goswami is a great philosopher, and he basically says there are three ways of acquiring knowledge. One is known as pratyaksha, which means that perceived by direct sense perception. He says the second way of perceiving knowledge is anuman, which means deduction, logic, rationale. And he says the third way of perceiving knowledge is shabda, or testimony, descending knowledge that comes from a higher source that you have faith in. Now you've admitted that pratyaksha is limited, but now your next question is anuman or deduction also limited? Yes. Even that is limited, because deduction is also based on sense perception. Because you're using your mind, and your mind is also a sense. It's the sixth sense. And therefore the mind is also limited, because the mind has only perceived a certain amount of things in this world. And therefore if you try to deduce things based on the mind, it's still limited. Because the mind can only explore within certain boundaries. So if you want to understand something beyond the mind and senses, then you have to go to a source outside of your own mind and senses. And that means shabda, accepting the testimony of someone who is beyond the mind and senses. And that gives you access to a knowledge which otherwise can't be reached by those who are trying the ascending process of knowledge. You understand? That's why even deduction is limited. Is that okay? Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Maharaj. I just had a question based on what your answer is. So you said that there is a branch of knowledge that is beyond your sense perception and beyond your mental capabilities. So you have to tap into something that is beyond these two things. But if one is a rational person and believes in his own mind that he can understand everything around him, then what's the difference between a fantasy, which could be something true, and spiritual knowledge, which is not bound by the mental capabilities that a person has? So how can we make
Thank you so much, yes. So for example, I could become your guru and I could tell you that actually in reality there is a world where there are pink elephants with 3 eyes and they dance around in circles, and that could, how do you know whether that's true or not if you just have to accept me, right? So therefore, whatever the spiritual people tell you, you can then use pratyaksha and anuman to try to verify that. And you will actually begin to see corroboration by using your senses and your mind. So what we're saying in spiritual life is that it's not that you can't use your senses, it's not that you can't use your mind and intelligence, but that's not the starting point. The starting point is try to hear from a source beyond yourself, and then use your senses and your intelligence to see whether that corroborates with your experience of the world, and you will begin to see that actually there's a positive correlation. So when you become a spiritual person, it's not that you're supposed to lose your intelligence. Rather, you're supposed to activate your intelligence, but activate your intelligence in collaboration with a knowledge which is beyond your intelligence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense because, well, I'm going to align with you here. It's like when I was in school and the maths teacher would tell me 2 plus 2 is 4. At that time I did not know what that 2 plus 2 is 4, but just by accepting that knowledge and then applying it and understanding that, yeah, it is correct. So I think that's what you're trying to say, right?
Yes. Okay, here's a question here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. It's a coincidence that the first topic that you're discussing was in regard to karma, and I had a burning question for a couple of days since I've been with you. Karma is the equal and opposite reaction of our actions. What happens in a case or in a situation where on a daily basis we unknowingly offense or commit offenses, or for example, we walk or take steps every single day, and we tend to step on insects, for example, which is a living entity. So how do we take care of that? The same with plants, which will have a life. What is the karma on that?
Karma is not a black and white concept. It's not that you do this action and you get this reaction. Along with the action, Krishna is also looking at your motivation. Krishna is also looking at the circumstances. Krishna is also looking at what your inner bhav or emotion is. And all of that coupled with your action then gives you a certain karmic reaction. So karma is not just a black and white, A equals B. It's a very, very complex law, and it's a complex law which is taking account of the situation and the intention with which an act was performed. So therefore, there's a difference between someone who goes out and purposely kills an animal to eat it, and someone who is walking on the beach and inadvertently steps on a living entity that they have no control over. Clearly, there's a difference between that because the motivation and the situation is entirely different. And so we have to understand that karma is meant to educate us. Karma is meant to teach us. So the reaction you get is not based so much on the action, but more based on the lesson that you need to learn in order to move forward. You understand? So, yes, every single day we're committing violence, actually. We're committing violence every single day. And therefore, a spiritualist is very aware of this and tries to live in the most natural and non-violent way as possible. And in the course of that, if we still create some violence, then at the end of the day we're going to Krishna and we're praying, please forgive me if I have unknowingly done something. And God is kind. God is your best friend. He understands your heart. And therefore Krishna's name is Bhavagrahi Janardana. Krishna who is accepting your bhav. It's okay?
So Maharaj, now let's take this from another angle, okay? So there's a lot of violence that has taken place in the name of God or religion in this world. So wouldn't the world be better without religion? In fact, in the Gita, Krishna encourages Arjuna to kill his relatives. So would an all-good Lord allow such huge-scale suffering?
Religion has caused war, and therefore wouldn't the world be better without religion? It's not religion that causes war. It's bad religious practitioners that cause war. See, let me give you some formulas. Money plus ignorance equals corruption. Freedom plus ignorance equals anarchy. Religion plus ignorance equals terrorism. Can you see the common factor in all of these equations?
Yeah, it's ignorance.
Ignorance. The problem is not money. The problem is when people add ignorance to money, then it becomes corruption. Similarly, the problem is not religion, but when you add ignorance to religion, it becomes terrorism. So a less intelligent person will take religion out of the equation. But you're still going to end up with the same problem because ignorance hasn't been removed. So today, if you take religion out of the world thinking that it's now going to solve all the problems, my friend, you're mistaken. Because ignorance still exists. And if ignorance exists, people will fight over something else. Therefore, what you really need to do is remove ignorance from the equation. And when you do that, and religion is practiced purely, sincerely, for the purpose that it was originally intended for, religion comes from the Latin ligare. Re means again, ligare means to link. The purpose of religion is to connect with the divine. And when people actually use religion for that purpose, far from creating war, religion is the thing which will actually create peace in the world.
Okay. I agree with you there. And so religion's purpose, you have quoted something which is very high for me to understand. So I would take it as this: and is religion's purpose to make people compassionate and good? Is religion's purpose to make a person more compassionate and good?
Science improves things. Religion improves people.
Okay. So if so, then there are many atheists who are also philanthropic and are doing so much good in this world. So then why is religion or spirituality even needed when there are good moral values that are also present in atheists?
So there are good people who do things in the world who are atheists. So why do we need religion to create good in the world? Yes, there may be people who are atheists who do good things in the world, but the effect of their good activities is limited because their good activities and their good intentions don't factor in spiritual knowledge. For example, if I walk down the road and someone had dropped down and was having some kind of seizure, if I have never studied medicine, but I decide out of my good intention to try to help them, in helping them I might cause more harm. Because it's not enough to have good intentions. You also have to have good knowledge, good understanding. The passion to help others has to be combined with the compass of knowledge. Because when you add the compass to passion, then it becomes compassion. So compassion is not just the passion to help others, that's very good. But you also need to have the compass of knowledge to know how to help them. Therefore, if an atheist person tries to help someone, naturally they can do some good. But if they don't know deeply who that person is, what is the root of their suffering, what is the goal of life, why does this world even exist? If they don't have answers to these questions, how much can they really help someone?
Okay. Okay, I agree with that statement. Just one more, and then we go to the audience. So in our modern day lives, life is moving very fast. And from what I understand, the concept of spirituality is that you take the time out, you introspect, or you slow down life. So this seems like a counterproductive tool. So any missed time that you incur while practicing spirituality, you are actually left behind in the race of the real world. So why should one waste their time taking to spirituality?
Do you drive a car?
Yes.
Do you stop at the petrol station?
Yes.
Why? That's a waste of time.
But I need to.
You could get to your destination quicker if you didn't stop at the petrol station.
Yeah,
But you might run out of fuel on the journey there. So sometimes you need to stop to refuel. Sometimes you need to stop to recharge. Sometimes you need to stop to invest in yourself. Because if you do that, you'll become more effective. When you shoot an arrow, what's the first thing that you do? You pull it forward or you pull it back? But why would you go back? The idea is to get the arrow to the target. You're going in the other direction. Why are you going in the other direction? Because the more you pull back, once you release it, you can aim and you can get to your direction faster. So, taking time out to meditate, taking time out for your spirituality, taking time to reflect will not leave you behind in the world. You'll actually end up going 10 times faster.
Okay, so we're going to have a few audience questions. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand and a microphone will come to you.
Please, without delay, Time is going very fast.
There's a question there.
You mentioned something about karma, or I've heard during my interaction with the community that when I get reborn again, I want to remember my past life. I like to think that my identity is tied to my memory, that if I start forgetting right now, I'll lose who I am. So, why should I care what the other guy will suffer in the next life if I want to remember my past? What's stopping me from doing just living my life fully, because I want to remember it, the punishment which I'll receive the next life. I hope I'm clear.
So once we leave this world, then we don't remember our previous identities. Neither other people remember their previous identities. So if we live in this world and we cause harm to others, why would it matter? Because later on they're going to forget, you're going to forget, and it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, it's like if somebody commits genocide, then he forgets everything. He literally forgets what's the point of punishing him can't
He may
remember.
forget.
Yeah.
He may forget, but the divine doesn't forget.
Uh-huh.
And the point of punishing him is still there, because it means there's a need to refine that person's consciousness. And therefore the divine will send different experiences to that person in their next life so that they can understand that that's not the right way to live. So we may or may not remember our previous lives. That doesn't mean we can't receive lessons in this life from actions in a previous life that can help us to elevate our understanding. For example, like say for example someone, sometimes they as a child they may put their hand in fire. Okay? But later on in their life they don't remember the exact incident. But still in their psychology they're afraid of fire now. In other words, there are still things we can remember, things we can learn from instances that we don't necessarily remember. So remembrance of something is not the only way of learning. There are other ways in which we are learning from previous lives, even though we don't remember those previous lives. Even though you may not remember the specific act which is causing a reaction now, that doesn't mean you can't learn from this reaction. For example, if someone, say for example, they lose their child. Now they don't know what caused them to lose their child. Does that mean they can't learn from that situation? They can still learn many lessons. That life is volatile, that the material world is full of suffering, that sometimes things can happen to us even when we try to control it in a completely different way. These are all lessons you can still learn from the situation. And so, even though we don't remember previous lives, we still have to be conscious and we can still learn from previous lives. Is that okay?
Oh, and
You
what
can
about
follow up,
my
yeah.
life right now? I won't suffer those punishments. Somebody else, the next life will suffer it. So, will it be okay? Is it sensible to not care what the other guy will suffer? Because I won't be there.
But you may care or not care that they suffer or not, but you should care because you're going to get a reaction for it.
For example, right now, if somebody died, then he became me. Somebody died, then he became me.
Became you? No, that doesn't work like that.
Okay, somebody was me before he died.
No, you are you. You are not, everyone is an individual soul. So after this life, you are a soul in this body at this moment in time. When this term of existence comes to an end, you, the soul, okay? Remember, you're not a person who has a soul. You're a soul that currently has a body. You are the soul, okay? Remember this is an important point. So when you die, or when the body is no longer functional, you, the soul, move to another body and you accept that identity. Right? No one becomes you. You are you, the soul. And this body is finished. That body will never exist again. Make sense? Thank you.
Okay, we have a question. Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, speaking of reincarnation, so let's assume I'm a bad person. Okay, I'm not that good anyway. So I'm a bad person. Then in the next life, I'm born, let's say, with a certain disability. So is it the parents to that person, or is it my fault that I'll be born with a certain disability in the next life? Or why are people basically born with maybe a disability, but yeah.
Thank you, it's a very good question. First thing is we have to remember that karma is here not to judge other people. It's not for us to say that someone now is suffering now in this life because they did something in the previous life. As I said, karma is very complex. There are many reasons, there are many factors involved. What we can definitely say is that whatever situation someone faces in this life, even if it's a very difficult situation, it's a situation in which there is an opportunity to learn something that will help them to progress on their journey. God or the divine doesn't just put people into situations so they can suffer. God or the divine puts people into situations so that they can learn. So it's not for us to judge that a disabled person is disabled because they did something terrible in their previous life. That's not for us to judge, because we don't know all of the factors which led to that. But we can definitely say that whatever situation we face ourselves in now, there's something that we can learn from that situation and use in order to become a happier and more spiritual person. Does that kind of answer? Yeah. Is there a question? Okay, there's some questions there.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I find that religion brings about fear in the believers. Like, if you don't follow such and such rules, you will suffer in hell. So why should I serve a God who brings about fear in me? No one likes fear, it's a negative emotion, so why should I serve a God who brings about this fear? And who knows what's happening after death? Is there hell? Is there heaven? So, why?
Thank you so much. So, God sometimes brings about fear in us by saying, if you don't do this, then this will happen. So why should I bring about, or why should I desire to worship a God who brings about fear in us? Well, I'll go back to the very first example that I gave you today. Don't parents even sometimes put fear into their children? If you don't do this, do you know what may happen to you in the future? Yes, there is some fear, but that fear is instilled in you in order to protect you from a later type of deeper suffering. So that fear is also a sign of compassion. However, all of you are nice parents, and you don't bring up your children just by fear, isn't it? That's just one ingredient. But most of the time you're bringing up your children by love. 90% love, 10% fear sometimes is also required. That's why you have a mother and a father. Generally the mother gives the love and the father gives a little bit of fear. Is it? Both are required in order to bring up a child. But God, His fear aspect is just very small sometimes. But the predominant characteristic of God is that He's very loving, He's very kind. Krishna dances, Krishna wrestles, Krishna steals, Krishna smiles, Krishna laughs, Krishna dances, Krishna steals his friend's lunch. Krishna is very nice, He's very charming, He's very kind, and you can have a loving relationship with Him. Krishna is your best friend. But sometimes Krishna may also say some things to warn you, so that you understand that if I don't do this, or if I do this, then it will cause me suffering in my life. So that is also part of love. So in the spiritual world, in the spiritual reality, every emotion is present. It's not that fear is only here, but not in the spiritual world. No, there is fear there also, but it's fear behind which there is incredible compassion. So Krishna is not a God to be feared. Krishna is a God that you can love. But along with that love, He may sometimes give a little bit of caution. Okay? If it's not, you can also come back.
Pranam Maharaj, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So my question is, one of the sloka in Maharaj is written by Vyas Muni, ke ahar nidra parimaithanam cha samanyam etat pashubhi naranam dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho dharvena hina pashubhi samanam. So in this verse, Vyas is explaining the word dharma. So what is the true meaning of it and how we should understand the word dharma? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dharma basically means your purpose. Sometimes people translate dharma as religion. Sometimes people translate dharma as duty. Sometimes people translate dharma as ethics. But actually dharma comes from the Sanskrit root dri, which means to sustain. So dharma actually means your purpose. Understanding what is your purpose. Why do you exist? So Krishna basically says, we have two dharmas. We have a swadharma and we have a sanatan dharma. In this world we have two purposes. The first purpose is we have swadharma. We live in a family, we live in a society, we live in this body. And with that comes many, many purposes that we have to fulfill in this world. Some of you are mothers, some are fathers, some are teachers, some do some kind of different activities in this world. That's one aspect of your dharma. But the other aspect of your dharma is sanatan dharma, which means your purpose as a spiritual being. And your purpose as a spiritual being is at the end of this life, we have to come out of this material world and go back to our true home. So most people in this world, they only do their swadharma. They only fulfill their purpose in this life. But that is not complete fulfillment of dharma, because ultimately, if you don't do your sanatan dharma, you'll have to come back to this world with all the difficulties in this world. And therefore, this verse of the Mahabharata is saying, Dharmo hitesho adike vishesho dharmena hina pashubhi samanaha. What is the difference between an animal and a human being? An animal eats, isn't it? And a human being eats. Ahar. Nidra, an animal sleeps, and a human sleeps. Bhaya, an animal has some fear or defends itself, and a human also has fear and it defends himself. Maituna, an animal engages in mating, and a human also engages in mating. So what's the difference? If a human just uses their intelligence to eat, sleep, mate and defend, but do it in a more complicated way, that doesn't make them a human. Dharmena hina pashubhi samanaha. If a human doesn't pursue dharma, then basically they're an animal. Is that strong? Srila Prabhupada said they're a two-legged animal. Are you calling me an animal? But that's what you're doing. An animal eats on the street and you eat in a very complicated restaurant. An animal mates on the street and you do it in a 5-star hotel. An animal defends itself with its claws and you do it through nuclear weapons. An animal sleeps in an alleyway and you sleep on a 5-star bed. Does that make you a human? No. You're basically doing the activities of an animal in a more polished way. Your intelligence is meant to be used for something more than that. You see, if I had an iPhone here, right, just imagine I have an iPhone in my hand. Can I use an iPhone as a door stopper? Can I? Will it work? Yeah? I can put an iPhone under the door to make sure the door doesn't close, and it will work. And if I do that, what will you think about me? You will think, Bhagavan, absolutely mad. You have an iPhone, it may work as a door stopper, but there's 10 million better things you can do with an iPhone than using it as a door stopper. The human body is like that. Are you going to use it just to eat, sleep, mate and defend? Or are you going to use your human body and intelligence to understand dharma? What is my purpose? Who am I? Why am I here? What happens after death? Who is God? And what is my relationship with Him? These 5 questions we must all be able to answer. Otherwise, dharmena hina pashubhi samanaha. It's just animal life. So therefore, this verse from the Mahabharata is very important. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. I don't know how much time we have left.
Hare Krishna. Just to add on that point, if dharma translates to duty, what is religion? Isn't dharma religion?
Yes, these terms are overlapping. Duty, religion, purpose, these are all kind of similar concepts. So yes, it's your duty, it's your purpose. You can say it's your religion. So these are not separate things. These are all interconnected concepts.
Hare Krishna. But Maharaj, religion can be varied, but dharma cannot be varied. It is permanent.
Yes. You see, when we use words like religion, you can see them in different contexts. So yes, dharma actually you can say goes beyond religion. Because purpose is like if someone says, I'm a Christian, therefore 2 + 2 = 5. But if you're a Hindu, 2 + 2 = 4. And if you're an atheist, 2 + 2 = 3. No. It doesn't matter whether you're Hindu, Christian, atheist, whoever you are, 2 + 2 is 4. It doesn't matter on your faith. So similarly, dharma means the purpose of the living entity. Whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, whatever profession you have or whatever you profess to be, dharma means purpose. And it goes beyond sectarian religious faith. And therefore, actually what we're teaching here in the Hare Krishna temple is not actually religion. We are teaching actually dharma. We are teaching purpose. And that goes beyond sectarian boundaries. So it doesn't matter whether you're Indian, English, African, European. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, whether you're man or woman, young or old. It goes beyond. This is the essence of life. So yes, thank you. Yes, question here.
So I had a question about the previous. Maharaj, I had a question about you said that the past life people cannot remember. But then, like, why is it important that, why can't we remember our past life? Like, what's the reason behind it? Like, we can remember our past life, there's nothing wrong about it, but then why can't we remember our past life?
Why can't we remember our past life? Thank you, good question. How many of you have ever seen a baby being born? All the mothers have to say yes. Many of you have seen. Have you ever seen a baby coming out of the mother smiling? Is it? Is it? Baby is always crying. According to nature's arrangement, it's said that when a baby is born, there's a traumatic situation. The baby is crying. And it's said that when the soul comes out of the mother's womb, the baby is crying and the trauma of that situation resets the memory. So generally 99.99% of the time we can't remember our previous life. Maybe 1 or 2 maybe, but most can't. So your question is, why can't we remember our previous life? Because if you remembered your previous life, you would not be able to live in this identity. It would be too traumatic. it would be too disturbing. If you remembered, for example, how you died in the last life, if you had a memory of that, you wouldn't be able to cope with it. It would be too much. Even we see in this life, when people go through something in their childhood which is very, very difficult, it scars them for the rest of their life. So imagine now if you can remember all of your previous lives and the things that people done to you, you wouldn't be able to live in this identity. And therefore Krishna gives you an opportunity to forget everything so that you can live out this identity and live out your desires. So Krishna arranges it like that to fulfill your desires. Is that okay? Thank you. Yes, here at the back.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Jinendra. I have got two questions. One is, the younger generation nowadays, they somehow sway away from the religion. They believe that if I'm a good human being, it's good enough. Number two, what is the difference between religion and spirituality?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So first question is, the younger generation are tending to move away from religion. Yes, that's a fact. But why is that? Because maybe the generation before them have not inspired them sufficiently to take it up. The kids of this age, if you tell them, just do it because my father did it, and because their father did it, and because we've been doing it for generations, they won't do it. They want to know why they're doing it. Why? Why are we having so many questions here today? In order to give you the why behind what you're doing. If you just say, do it because it's tradition, nowadays kids won't do it. Because they want to know the rational, scientific, solid reason, the logical reason why I should do it. But the amazing thing is, all the logical, scientific, solid reasons why they should do it are there. But have we learnt it? And have we explained it to them? If we haven't done that, then we can't look at them and say, oh, they're turning away from religion. We have to see that is my failure. How can you tell someone to do something if we ourselves are not doing it in a deep way? Once they came to Gandhi, one mother, and she said, tell my child not to eat so many sweets. So Gandhi said, come back in 2 weeks. So she came back in 2 weeks, and he told the child, don't eat too many sweets. So she said, why did you just say that 2 weeks ago? He said, because 2 weeks ago I was also eating too many sweets. So are we? Sometimes people come to our temple and we have children's programs. So the parents come, they drop off the kids, and then they go to the cinema to watch a Bollywood movie. And then they come back to pick them up. No, we want to also teach you. No, that's okay, I'm fine. But they should know. But I don't, no, then it won't work. So therefore, we must inspire people. We must tell them how if you follow religion, you'll become successful, your relationships will improve, you'll find more well-being in your life, you'll be able to achieve more, and basically your whole life will become more beautiful. But we have to be able to explain that, and that's the challenge. And therefore we're doing these events to try to help give the substance behind religion. So yes, and then you asked, what's the difference between religion and spirituality? Actually, it's basically this. Religion in the world today has become basically rituals. Just do it. I have no idea why I'm doing it. I have no idea what the meaning of it is. If someone asks me any question about it, I'm going to run away 5 miles because I have no answer. But I still do it because it's in tradition. But spirituality means I'm putting, when you put the spirit into the ritual, then it becomes spiritual. But if you take the spirit out of the ritual and you just do it mechanically, then it's just a ritual. Then it's just religion. So that won't help. Therefore, we have a huge responsibility to present spirituality to the next generation in the most logical, scientific, and inspiring way as possible, to show them that this is just the best way to live. That's the challenge. Should you accept it? Yes?
Maharaj, you did explain the first question of mine on the second question. So that's what.
Please take the mic just because for the camera they need.
Maharaj, thank you very much. Yes, definitely you answered my first question in the second question immediately. So, from our perspective in Mombasa and the young community or the young youth members, especially I'm talking of from the age of 18 to 40, they feel no need to go to a temple to do the rituals. They say, we good human beings, we do whatever we can for the benefit of people around us, to the general society. That's what they think.
Yes.
They find to really do the rituals, like you say, you run 5 miles away. If you ask why are you doing this and why are you doing this?
Yes.
Because nobody has an answer
Yes.
to that.
Yeah.
And this, I'm talking in general to different religions, not only Hinduism, but other religions. So there need to be good explanations or teachings to the youth to make them understand this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. The temple is not just a place of rituals. The temple is a place of education. The temple is the university of life. In the university of the world, did they teach you how to deal with it when someone passes away from your life? They didn't teach you that. In the university in the world, did they teach you how to control your anger? They didn't teach you that. In the university, when I went to UCL, did they teach me how to be tolerant and kind and compassionate? They didn't teach me that. Did they teach me how, if some unexpected health crisis comes in my life, how I can maintain equanimity of consciousness? Teach me that. All of those things are meant to be taught here, because this is not just a temple of rituals, this is a university of life. But in order for this to be a university of life, we need professors of life. And professors of life means people who have studied this spiritual knowledge. So, how many of us have studied Bhagavad Gita? How many of us can say we've read it cover to cover? How many of us can say we've understood it? And how many of us can genuinely say we're living it? And how many of us are confident to then go and share that knowledge with others? That's what will make a spiritual community. And the responsibility is on each one of us. Therefore, we have to, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. The global revolution begins with a personal resolution. So we have to be the beginning of that change. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So,
I see so many hands. Yeah, I don't know how we're doing for time.
just a couple of questions for me, and then we can just hand it back to them. Okay? So you said that there was two dharmas, Swadharma and Sanatana Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct in assuming that Sanatana Dharma for everyone is the same?
Yes, the Sanatana Dharma means the eternal duty. And the Sanatana Dharma is basically this. You are a soul, there is a supreme soul, you have a relationship of love with him, and by practice of the yoga of devotion and chanting of his names, you can achieve that connection.
Okay, so but if that is just one universal dharma, then why are there so many religions that try to preach that their way is the only way to reach the universal dharma?
Actually, what I just mentioned, if you look at every religion, basically this is what they're teaching. When you get beyond all the differences in rituals, the differences in culture, the slight theological variations, they're all basically teaching the same point. That you're a soul, that there's a God, that you have a relationship of love with him, and that this world is not your true home. However, because there are different times, places, and circumstances in the world, the same message has to be taught slightly differently at different times in history in order to help the people become elevated. So therefore there are different religions. But in essence, they are teaching the same thing.
So is there one which is, as you said, that all the religions have been brought about in different time, place, circumstance. But is there one religion which transcends, which is timeless, which is not subjected to different time, place, and circumstance?
Yes, that is Sanatana Dharma, that is what we're talking about. The ultimate religion is the religion of love. So therefore, the most advanced religion, all religions can give you benefit, all religions can give you advancement. But within that unity of religion, there is also diversity. Different religions are giving you different levels of detail and different levels of intimacy in your connection with God. And therefore, I'm sitting here telling you that all the religions are the same, ultimately. But then, I'm not a practicing Christian. I'm not a practicing Muslim. I'm sitting here in front of you as a practicing Hare Krishna. So then you may ask me the question, if you're saying that all the religions are same, why did you become a Hare Krishna and not a Christian? That doesn't mean I don't believe that Christians are getting closer to God. But from my study of theology, from my study of the world traditions, the conclusion that I came to is that the Vedic teachings, the Bhagavad Gita's teachings, are the most advanced, the most universal, the most effective, and the most powerful means of spiritual connection that transcend time, place, circumstance, and any other sectarian boundary. And therefore I decided to dedicate my life to trying to living this and to try to live this and share this. But I invite all of you to go on that journey yourself and discover it for yourself, because you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to accept it because I'm sitting here in front of you telling you it. But you all have to explore and find that for yourself.
And okay, so you're saying that you found that the Bhagavad Gita is the most elevated out of all the other theological texts that you've encountered. But there's so many versions of the Gita, so what makes the one that you follow better than the ones that are already there by different commentators?
Well, the truth is ultimately what works. Phalena parichyate. You judge a tree by the fruits. So why is my conviction that the Bhagavad Gita that I'm reading, why is my conviction so strong that that's the most authentic and powerful version of the Gita? Because I read many versions of the Gita, but when I read Srila Prabhupada's version of the Gita, then I found that that had and was able to create the most amount of transformation within me. And therefore that gave me the faith that this is the real thing, because the truth works.
All right, so I think I'm done for my questions. Now we'll go back to the audience.
Maybe just one or two more, because I'm conscious you've all been sitting for a long time. I can see many hands. But maybe just one or two questions and then we should.
Yeah, 2 questions?
For me, I can go on all night. I have no problem.
Okay, so we'll have 2 questions.
2 questions.
One at the back there and one there. That's it.
Can we get the mic for this person? Is there a mobile mic? Prabhu has it. Oh, you have a question first? Okay, so we'll go here. We'll come to you in a second, yeah? Okay, yes.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. I had a question, and this is based off a conversation I had the other day, and also a realization that I kind of had over time. So in different religions, we've been talking about individuality and spirituality and the individual soul and how the material affects us and how we are all striving to get to know the spiritual side of life, and attain ultimately connection back to God. So I have a question. So we're living a material life and we're born to this world. So does the spiritual realm also have an effect on us? Because you find that, let's say in Islam, sometimes in Christianity, sometimes we tend to say that, the devil is, or the demons that are affecting us. So this person is possessed, so that's why he's acting this way. Or he is possessed by some demon or something, and, that's why he is who he is, and he's not okay, so we need to pray for him and basically exercise him. So does the spiritual realm have an effect on our...
Or are there energies which are affecting us outside of ourselves?
And the second to that is, does it also affect our karma? If indeed that the demons do affect our lives, does it also affect our karma? Because it is our life.
Thank you so much. Very good question. Yes, there are influences in the world around us. Who can deny that? As soon as you walk down the street, you're being influenced by different things, by different people, by different environments. There are also more subtle influences. Yes, there can be subtle influences as well. So definitely there is a sense in which we are not, we are being influenced at every moment. However, we have the power to elevate our consciousness and make decisions in our life which will protect us from that influence. We are not disempowered. There's no influence that can forcibly place itself on us unless we allow it to happen. Right? Because the free will of the soul is always greater than any influence external to it. And so, yes, there are influences. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita explains there are 3 modes of material nature: sattva, rajas, and tamas, goodness, passion, and ignorance. This is influencing us. There are other people around us in the world. They are influencing us. There are subtle entities in the world. They are influencing us. There is maya or illusion that is influencing us. Then there's this whole Kali Yuga that we're living in, that is also influencing us. However, the more we become connected to our spiritual identity, we become less and less influenced by the world, and rather than being influenced by the world, we rather influence the world. And that's the art of spirituality. One person is being influenced, and another person is becoming an influencer. But that all depends on the strength of your spirituality. But if your spirituality is weak, then you will be influenced by so many things. You see? Have you noticed when people go and pick up a cigarette packet? 30 years ago, you might think, how do you know this? You're supposed to be a sannyasi. I know, people have told me. 30 years ago on a cigarette packet, they used to write, smoking may damage your health. 10 years later, they wrote, smoking seriously damages your health. 10 years later, they wrote, smoking kills. And the most amazing thing is, the message is getting stronger and stronger, but the cigarette sales are going higher and higher. How can someone pick up a cigarette packet which tells them this is going to kill you, and at the same time just take that cigarette and smoke it? That means they've lost their free will. They are now being influenced because it's completely irrational, but they still do it. Therefore, if you actually want to become free of influence, you have to become more spiritually connected. Is that okay? Thank you. Yes, at the back, I think the gentleman at the back had a question.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I think there is some bit of confusion that I see here. I come from Bharat, and I want to clarify the English translation of dharma is not religion. Religion is religion and dharma is dharma. Let me explain you that Christianity is a religion, Islam is a religion, Jews, what they follow is also a religion. You can't be a Christian if you don't believe in Jesus Christ. You can't be a Muslim if you don't believe in Allah. If you believe in Allah but if you don't believe in Muhammad, you can't be a Muslim. This kind of restriction is not there in Dharma. Sanatan Dharma is one which has no beginning and no end. If you look at any religion, it has been started by somebody. Christianity by Jesus, Islam by Mr. Muhammad, Mr. whatever, right? Sanatan Dharma there has not been. And please understand, Sanatan Dharma allows me to say Aham Brahmasmi, Main hi Brahma hu, I am the God. It also tells me that Tattvamasi, आप भी भगवान हैं, आप भी ब्रह्म हैं, और it allows you, Dharma says that Atma and Paramatma, the unification of the two should be the purpose of life. Again, some lady was mentioning that why should we fear Krishna or our God or our Bhagavan? Of course, we should not be fearing our Bhagavan. We respect him. We just know that dharma, dharyati iti dharma. The one you dharan, what you dharan जिसे हम करते हैं वही धर्म है. और आप किसी धारण करते हैं अपने. You understand a bit of Hindi?
I understand what you're saying. What is your question exactly?
No, my question is that when you say that all religions are same, please don't put Sanatan Dharma in the religious category of others, because the belief that I have, it says that every living being is the same.
Okay, thank you. I already gave you the definition of religion. The English word religion comes from the Latin re-ligare. Re means again. Ligare means to link. Yoga comes from the Sanskrit yuj. You know what yuj means? To link. So therefore yoga and religion in their essence are the same thing. When we use these words, we're using them in different ways. The essence of life is to learn to love God. If someone can love God as a Christian, we respect that. If someone can learn to love God as a Muslim, we respect that. It's not for us to sit here and say one religion is higher than another. However, we do sit here and say we are practicing this religion, Sanatan Dharma, the teachings of the Vedas, because in our experience, in our understanding, this has the most advanced and universal way of connecting with the Supreme Person. Yes, we are spirit. Yes, God is also spirit, but we are the servant of God. We never become God. And therefore, just to clarify on your point, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Nadvevaham jatunasham natvam me janadipa nacheva na bhavishyama sarvevaya mataparam. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So therefore, just to clarify, because I had a sense that you may not be clear on that point, we are spirit souls, individual, and we always remain individual. We never become God. It's not that I am God, you are God, everyone is God, God is one. No. Krishna says, I am Bhagavan. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravardate iti matva bhajante mam buddhapava samanvita. Krishna says, Aham, from me, sarvasya prabhavo, everything comes. So we are Nitya Krishna Das, the eternal servants of God. Krishna wants to have a loving relationship with us, and we don't want to commit spiritual suicide by trying to make everything one. No, that is not the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. So the teaching of Bhagavad Gita is that we have the opportunity to develop a relationship of love, and whether you want to call it religion, whether you want to call it yoga, whether you want to call it dharma, that's up to you, because all these terms people use in different ways. The essence of it is develop your relationship of love by serving God, and if you do that, your life is perfect.
Yes. Can I ask one question, please?
Yes, I can't see who's speaking.
The
Can you stand up?
DJ. The DJ.
Oh, okay, yeah, you were hiding there.
So basically my question is, what is the link between karma and forgiveness? We've been talking about karma all this time, that whatever you do, there's an equal and opposite reaction, but forgiveness, the question now, how to go about it, the link.
So are you saying, for example, if someone causes you pain, then on one hand you understand it's karma, and how does forgiveness work in that? Well, karma helps you to forgive others. Say, for example, tomorrow you come and create some discomfort for me. I understand that that was my karma for me to go through that discomfort, and you were simply the messenger of my karma. Imagine tomorrow someone sends a speeding fine through your letterbox, the postman. You're not going to open the door and start running down the road chasing the postman saying, why did you give me a speeding fine? No, he's just the postman. So therefore, when we understand karma, that everything we're going through for a reason, then we understand that other people are simply the messengers of my karma. And therefore, when we see that other people are the messengers of my karma, then we're able to look at them and realize that they are not the cause of my suffering actually. They are simply just the messengers of the suffering. And therefore we're more able to forgive them, and we're more able to be more peaceful without holding negativity and bitterness towards others, because we take responsibility. Is that okay? Thank you. Okay, there's another question there, very eager.
Because of the time, I guess.
Yeah. Because of the time? Okay, you get the last one because you're very eager.
Oh, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Right.
On a lighter note, you
Yes.
remind me of the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Oh, okay, thank you. I never had a Ferrari, but...
So, I really showed this with my kids and they're hiding up there. So where in India did you go to find enlightenment?
Thank you so much, yeah. When I was 21, I graduated from university. And then I first came to Mumbai. And in Mumbai, in Chowpatty, we have an ashram there. So I was staying there for some time. And then I went traveling to Vrindavan. Vrindavan is Krishna's own home. It's said that Vrindavan is the playground of God. It's a very sweet place, very beautiful place. Morning to evening, there is so much spiritual activity going on. So I spent time there. And then I spent time in another place called Mayapur. Mayapur is in West Bengal, near Calcutta. And Mayapur, West Bengal is a very special place because many people may not be aware, but Krishna actually incarnated in this world in the Kali Yuga. The day that Krishna left the earth was the day that Kali Yuga began. But it's said that actually Krishna came back to the earth planet in Kali Yuga as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appeared in West Bengal, in Mayapur. And so this is a very, very special place. So I spent time in all of these places. And in India, even though India is becoming more and more westernized, still India is the land of spiritual culture. And therefore there's many, many beautiful gifts you can pick up there. And so while I was there, I was able to learn so much. I'm still learning. And as I said, I don't come in front of you claiming that I'm perfect, that I'm pure, that I know everything. I'm simply trying to share what I've heard from my teachers. And in this way, it was a very beautiful beginning to be in India. But then eventually I went back to London, and London is now my base. But we're constantly traveling, moving from place to place. Every day, every week, a different country. Every month, a different continent. And in this way, they say in English, a rolling stone gathers no moss. So we try to keep moving, stay unattached, and in whatever small way we can, we try to share spiritual knowledge. So I want to thank all of you for coming this evening, for being so patient, for listening. I think we had a good time tonight, did we? Yes. So thank you so much. This is really the purpose. I'm really, really grateful for your attention and your kindness, your tolerance. Please forgive me if I said anything which was a little strong. Forgive me if some of my jokes were a little bit not so good. But I hope that you leave today with some knowledge and some inspiration. And we hope that all of you will connect with this temple. We have our devotees over the last 2 or 3 decades who have worked so hard to create this beautiful facility. And now we welcome all of you to come. This is your home. You please come and you please be part of the community so that together we can share spiritual knowledge and really make the world a better place.